Good morning, my dear students. I hope all of you are fine and safe at home. Welcome to our science class. In the previous class, you had started chapter 10, respiration, and you've learned about the respiration and breathing in human beings. In today's class, we will learn about the breathing in other organisms, including plants. Right? So let us start. First, we'll look into unicellular organisms. What are unicellular organisms? Yes, which have only a single cell in their bodies. Now, how does this cell help them to perform all the various functions? Right? The respiration or breathing, it occurs through the cell membrane, the outer cover of the cell. The gaseous exchange takes place through the process called diffusion. What is diffusion? Look at this picture of amoeba. The cell membrane is the outer cover. It is porous. So the oxygen can flow from the outside of the cell to the inside where the concentration of oxygen was more. Now, when the cell has respired and carbon dioxide is there inside the cell, the concentration of carbon dioxide becomes more inside the cell. So, it will flow out again through the process of diffusion. So, in amoeba or other unicellular organisms like Euglena, Paramecium and all, the breathing takes place through the cell membrane and by the process of diffusion. Now, look at the insects. Right? Insects like grasshoppers, cockroaches and so on, how do these breathe? They do not have a very specialized respiratory system like ours. They do not have so many organs. The respiratory system is there, but it is very simplified. It consists of small pores like our nostrils called spiracles, which open up on the from the body on the outside. These spiracles are linked to various tubes called tracheal tubes or tracheae. These tracheal tubes and again branch out into tracheoles, and they take the oxygen to different cells of the body and also bring back the carbon dioxide, which are then passed on to the spiracles and thrown out of the body of the grasshopper. Now look at this picture. You can see that air enters through the spiracles, is circulated inside the body through the tracheal tubes, and again the carbon dioxide is brought back to the spiracles, which throw it on the outside. Now what about fishes? Fishes, children, you have learnt about fishes in various other classes also, that the fishes breathe through gills. Yes. Now what are gills? How do gills help them? Supposing you take out a fish from your aquarium and keep it on the table. Right? Why does it die after some time? Why can't it take the oxygen from the surroundings? It is because it is not having lungs like us. Yes. It has gills. So gills only are those organs which will help it to take the dissolved oxygen only from the water. It cannot take in the free oxygen from the atmosphere. So fishes are provided with gills, as you can see in the picture. These gills are surrounded by many blood capillaries which take in the oxygen and circulate it to all the parts of the body. Right? Now about the earthworm. Yes, how do the earthworm breathe? Does earthworm breathe or not? Yes, it does. How? Through the skin. Now you must have observed the earthworms that their body is always very slimy, very sticky. Why? Because the body is usually wet. Why? Because they can only breathe through their wet bodies. The moist skin helps them to take in the oxygen from the outside. Right? It is their wet skin or moist skin which helps it to breathe. So the organ which helps it to breathe is the moist skin in case of the earthworm. Now frog. You all have learned about frog. They are amphibians. What are amphibians? The animals which can live both inside water and on the land. So just like a frog, it can live on land also, inside water also. So when it goes inside water, it will take in the dissolved oxygen through its moist skin. But when it is on the land, it will breathe like us through the lungs. So there are two organs of respiration or breathing in a frog, that is lungs and moist skin both. Right? Now we come to the organisms, other living organisms, that is plants. Yes, you guessed right. Plants also respire. They also breathe. Now, why does plants want to have respiration? You've learned about photosynthesis, children. Photosynthesis, where they are requiring which gas? Carbon dioxide to prepare their food. But in respiration, which gas is required? You've learned last time in the last class. Yes, oxygen. So now, why do the plants require oxygen? What was respiration? The breakdown of food to release energy, using oxygen or without oxygen also. But in this case, plants want oxygen to break down the food that they have already prepared using carbon dioxide. So during the daytime when the sunlight is available, they will prepare their food and store it in the form of glucose. But at night, when the sunlight is not there, they also want energy from the food, so they start breaking it down through respiration using which gas? Oxygen. That is why we are advised not to sleep under trees at night, because at that time they are respiring, they are releasing carbon dioxide. So we might get suffocated. We will not feel comfortable. So at night, usually the plants respire and they release carbon dioxide instead of taking it in. They also want oxygen for respiration. Now, what are the organs? What are the parts which will help them to breathe or in gaseous exchange? As you know that the leaves are provided with stomata. So in the leaves or in the green stem, stomata are present. They will help it to in gaseous exchange to take in oxygen to release carbon dioxide. But what about the trunks of the trees, the large trees, the woody stem? The woody stem usually have small pores like stomata only, but these are called lenticels. These lenticels also help in the gaseous exchange. Now you might be wondering that photosynthesis takes place in the leaves only or the green parts of the plant. But how can respiration or breathing occur throughout the body? Why does breathing occur throughout the body? Because respiration is required for releasing energy, and energy can be required in any part of the plant body, like us. We also require energy in our hands, in the mind, everywhere. Just like that, plants also require energy in each and every part of their body. So that is why respiration takes place in throughout their this plant body, like in stem, like in leaves, in roots, everywhere. Now, what is present inside the leaves? Stomata for gaseous exchange. In the stem, it is lenticels. Now, what about the roots? Roots can absorb the gases through their general surface. See in this picture, you can see that the oxygen is being taken in through the root hair and carbon dioxide leaves. Roots are inside the soil. There are air spaces there. So, the gaseous exchange occurs through those air spaces. Right? The roots go deep inside the soil, they have root hair there, and the root hair help them to absorb. Again, the gaseous exchange takes place through the process of diffusion, right? Flow of particles from place of high concentration to a place of low concentration. Oxygen can be taken in and carbon dioxide is released on the outside. Now, what about seeds, children? Germinating seeds. Now, seeds also respire. Remember, whenever any organism requires energy, it has to break down the food it has. And for breaking down, respiration is required. Right? And for respiration, aerobic respiration, oxygen will be required. For anaerobic respiration, what? Oxygen will not be required. Now, seeds also respire both the ways, aerobically also and anaerobically also. So, in your books, they have given you 3 experiments which prove that the seeds also respire. Now see, in this first experiment, simple experiment it is, you take a bell jar, put some germinating seeds in it, and drop by drop the water is drilling inside it. Why? So that the seeds do not get dried up. Now connect a delivery tube from the bell jar, and the other end goes into a beaker containing lime water. Now where does lime water you studied earlier? In the last topic it was there. Yes, when you want to test the presence of carbon dioxide. So when the seeds start breathing, they start taking in oxygen from there and release carbon dioxide. When this carbon dioxide passes from the bell jar into the lime water turns milky, right? And this tells us that carbon dioxide is released when the seeds are breathing. Understood? So this proves that respiration also takes place in seeds, where they release carbon dioxide instead of taking it in. Now, what is your second experiment? The second experiment proves that heat is also produced during respiration. When an organism respires, it uses the food, breaks it down, and heat is also released. So, see, very simple again experiment. In one jar, you take germinating seeds. In the second one, you boil those seeds, so they become dead. Right? And now, in this jar is airtight. Inside it, you put a thermometer. In the second jar, also do the same thing. Put a thermometer inside these are the boiled seeds here. Now wait for some time. After some time, what you will observe is the temperature in the first jar rises. The thermometer shows a rise in the temperature, but not in the second case. Why? Because in the second case, the seeds are already dead, so they will not respire. Understood? Now, third experiment, children, is to prove that seeds can respire aerobically, which we saw in the first experiment. They can also respire anaerobically. Now, in this experiment, you again have to take 2 beakers. In the first beaker, you take in the first beaker you take germinating seeds and then mercury. You have to take a beaker, fill it half with mercury. Mercury is a shiny liquid, as you know, used in thermometers. Now take a test tube. At the bottom of the test tube put some germinating seeds. Again fill it full with the mercury. Invert it carefully in the beaker containing mercury. Right? Now what will happen? Germinating seeds are at the top. Then the full test tube is mercury there. Inside the beaker also mercury. Getting it? There is no air inside. The air cannot enter inside. Why? Because mercury will not let it go. But after some time, after 2-3 days, what will you observe is there is a small space created at the top of the test tube where carbon dioxide is collected. How? Because the seeds started respiring anaerobically. There was no air inside, no oxygen, but still they wanted to break down the food to release energy. So what did they do? They started respiring anaerobically, and the food was broken down to release energy they wanted, and also carbon dioxide as a byproduct was released. This carbon dioxide fills up the test tube at the top, right? And there's a space created at the top which tells you that carbon dioxide was released because the germinating seeds were respiring anaerobically. I hope everybody has understood what we discussed today. We discussed about the breathing in other organisms. We learned it about in the unicellular organisms, in a frog, in a fish, in earthworm, and in the plants. How do the plants respire? Through stomata in the leaves, through lenticels in the stems, and through the general surface of the roots. What about germinating seeds? They can also respire aerobically as well as anaerobically. I hope you all stay safe at home, children. Goodbye for now.